16 August 2026. One royal ceremony, one historic tradition, and one wave of dramatic headlines that left millions asking the same question. Did King Charles really bring one of Britain's oldest royal events to an unexpected end because of something involving Queen Camilla and Catherine, Princess of Wales? Social media exploded with claims of a royal confrontation. YouTube channels spoke of palace panic. Commentators suggested tensions had finally reached a breaking point. But behind the sensational headlines lies a story that is both more subtle and, in many ways, even more fascinating. Today, we're taking you inside Windsor Castle, where every glance, every gesture, and every carefully choreographed royal appearance is examined by millions around the world. We'll explore what is actually known, what royal experts observed, and why a routine ceremony became the center of intense speculation. By the end of this video, you'll understand how a centuries-old tradition turned into one of the most talked-about royal moments of the year. For the British royal family, public appearances are never just appearances. Every step is rehearsed, every position has meaning, and every smile, or lack of one, can become international news within minutes. That is especially true during the annual Order of the Garter ceremony, one of the oldest and most prestigious traditions in the monarchy. Dating back to the reign of King Edward III in the 14th century, the ceremony celebrates Britain's highest order of chivalry and is filled with centuries of symbolism, elaborate robes, feathered hats, and a formal procession through Windsor Castle. In 2026, expectations were unusually high. The public was eager to see King Charles continuing to lead the monarchy while undergoing ongoing cancer treatment. There was equal excitement surrounding Catherine, Princess of Wales, whose return to more regular public duties had been warmly welcomed after her own health challenges. Cameras from around the world lined the streets of Windsor, waiting to capture every royal arrival. As the royal vehicles entered the castle grounds, everything appeared exactly as protocol demanded. King Charles and Queen Camilla arrived together, dressed in the traditional blue velvet robes of the Order of the Garter. Prince William followed as one of the order's members, while Catherine watched from the viewing area alongside other senior royals, smiling and greeting spectators. From every official photograph and every accredited news report, the event appeared calm, organized, and respectful of centuries of royal tradition. Yet within hours, a very different story began spreading online. Some social media accounts claimed there had been visible tension between Queen Camilla and Catherine. Others suggested that King Charles had become unhappy with something that had occurred behind palace walls. Before long, dramatic headlines were claiming that the king had ended the ceremony after Camilla had supposedly crossed the line. Those headlines spread quickly, but they were not supported by verified reporting. That raises an important question. If the official ceremony unfolded normally, why did so many people believe something dramatic had happened? The answer lies in the unique world of royal watching. Unlike elected politicians, members of the royal family rarely explain their emotions publicly. They almost never respond to rumors directly. Silence has long been part of the institution's strategy. As a result, even the smallest moment, a glance, a pause, or two people standing several feet apart, can trigger days of speculation. Royal commentators often analyze body language, seating arrangements, and facial expressions, searching for clues about relationships inside the palace. Sometimes those observations provide interesting discussion. Other times they become exaggerated as they're repeated across social media, where speculation can easily transform into supposed fact. That is exactly what appears to have happened following the 2026 Garter ceremony. Photographs from the day show Catherine smiling while speaking with Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, before waving to Prince William during the procession. Images also show King Charles and Queen Camilla smiling as they entered and departed St. George's Chapel. Nothing in the verified visual record indicates that the ceremony was abruptly stopped or cut short. But that doesn't mean the public's fascination with the relationship between Camilla and Catherine came from nowhere. For years, royal observers have debated how the modern monarchy balances different personalities, generations, and responsibilities. Since Queen Elizabeth II's passing, King Charles has tried to present an image of stability while managing significant personal and institutional challenges. At the same time, Prince William and Catherine have increasingly become the public faces of the monarchy's future. That natural transition has led to endless comparisons. Who receives the loudest applause? Who dominates newspaper front pages? Whose photographs attract the most attention online? These questions may seem superficial, but within the world of royal media, they often become the foundation for dramatic narratives. Many commentators believe Catherine's popularity with the public remains exceptionally strong. Polls conducted over recent years have consistently placed her among the most admired members of the royal family. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla has gradually improved her own public standing since becoming queen, although her public journey has been far more complicated because of historical controversies surrounding King Charles's first marriage. These differing public perceptions often encourage tabloids and online creators to frame ordinary royal appearances as competitions rather than coordinated family events. That context matters when understanding why so many sensational headlines emerged after Garter Day. Because when millions of people are already expecting tension, even perfectly ordinary moments can be interpreted as evidence of conflict. 16 August 2026. And this is where the story becomes even more interesting, because once we separate the viral headline from what actually happened at Windsor, a very different picture begins to emerge. The claim that King Charles ended the Garter ceremony after Queen Camilla allegedly crossed a line is not supported by the available reporting. The 2026 Order of the Garter ceremony took place at Windsor Castle on 15 June 2026, with King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, all present as part of the day's traditional proceedings. And that matters because the most powerful part of this story isn't an alleged dramatic confrontation that we cannot verify. It's the question of how quickly royal speculation can transform an ordinary moment into a supposed palace crisis. Imagine the scene at Windsor, the medieval robes, the feathered hats, the procession moving toward St. George's Chapel, the cameras positioned to capture every important face, and millions of people watching from around the world. The Order of the Garter is not some casual family gathering where plans can simply be changed because someone becomes upset. It is Britain's oldest and most senior order of chivalry, and the annual celebration traditionally involves a formal procession and service at Windsor Castle. That is precisely why the phrase King Charles ends ceremony sounds so explosive. If such a thing had genuinely happened because of an argument involving Camilla and Catherine, it would represent an extraordinary breach from the carefully structured nature of the event, and there would almost certainly be substantial evidence from major royal correspondence, official records, photographs, and video coverage. Instead, the available evidence shows the opposite. The ceremony happened, senior royals participated, and Catherine was photographed attending alongside Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, while Charles and Camilla were photographed arriving together at St. George's Chapel. So why does the dramatic version remain so compelling? Because royal audiences are not simply watching people. They are watching a story that has been developing for years. Every generation of the monarchy creates its own tensions, comparisons, and expectations, and Catherine and Camilla occupy particularly interesting positions within that story. Catherine represents the future queen consort and the next generation of the institution, while Camilla represents the current queen beside Charles. Their roles are different, their histories are different, and their public images have developed under very different circumstances. That alone creates endless opportunities for speculation. When Catherine appears at an event and receives huge public attention, headlines inevitably focus on her. When Camilla makes an appearance, commentators examine her interaction with other members of the family. When Charles appears between them, observers naturally begin asking whether the king is balancing competing expectations inside the institution. But there is a major difference between asking those questions and claiming that a private confrontation definitely occurred. The first is commentary, the second requires evidence. And that distinction becomes especially important when the story involves people who rarely reveal what happens behind palace doors. The royal family's public appearances are designed around restraint. They do not normally walk toward microphones and explain every disagreement. They do not live stream private conversations. They do not provide running commentary about every facial expression. Instead, the public sees carefully controlled moments, and everything beyond those moments becomes a matter of interpretation. A photograph can show that two people were standing apart, but it cannot automatically tell us why. A facial expression can look serious, but it cannot prove anger. A change in seating position can appear significant, but without context, it may simply reflect protocol. And that is exactly where online royal commentary can become dangerous. Not necessarily because every commentator intends to mislead, but because repetition creates an illusion of confirmation. One account makes a claim, another repeats it, a third adds dramatic language, and suddenly viewers encounter the same story dozens of times. By the time the claim reaches a wider audience, the original uncertainty may have disappeared completely. The words reportedly, allegedly, or sources claim can gradually become invisible, while the dramatic conclusion remains. This is how an unverified royal disagreement can begin to feel like established history. Yet the actual 2026 Garter Day photographs tell us something far less chaotic. King Charles and Queen Camilla were present together. Catherine attended the service. Prince William participated as a member of the order. The procession took place. The royals appeared in their traditional ceremonial clothing, and the event proceeded as a major fixture of the royal calendar. In fact, Catherine's presence itself became one of the notable elements of the day. Reports highlighted her elegant appearance and her support for Prince William, while photographs captured her alongside Sophie as they watched the procession. That detail is important because it challenges the idea that the day's central story was some obvious public breakdown between senior members of the family. Instead, what viewers actually saw was another example of the monarchy performing one of its most important functions: maintaining continuity. The ceremony has survived kings, queens, wars, political crises, scandals, changing public attitudes, and enormous cultural shifts. The people inside the robes change, but the institution continues. And for Charles, that continuity has particular significance. His reign has been shaped by circumstances that would have tested any monarch. He inherited the throne after the extraordinarily long reign of Elizabeth II, meaning expectations surrounding his leadership were enormous from the very beginning. He has also had to navigate the transition from the older generation of the monarchy toward a future increasingly associated with William and Catherine. At the same time, the King and Princess of Wales have both faced serious health challenges in recent years, making public appearances carry an additional emotional weight for royal watchers. That is why the image of the family appearing together at a traditional ceremony can be more significant than a sensational headline suggests. It represents stability. It tells the public that despite everything happening behind the scenes, the constitutional and ceremonial machinery of the monarchy continues. And perhaps that is the part of the story that gets lost when every appearance is turned into a potential confrontation. Consider Catherine's position for a moment. When she appears at Windsor, people do not simply look at her clothing or her smile. They look for signs of confidence, signs of health, signs of her relationship with William, and signs of her place within the future monarchy. Her every appearance has become magnified because audiences understand that she will eventually occupy an even more important position. That naturally creates enormous media attention, but it can also create a temptation to interpret that attention as competition. If Catherine receives positive coverage, some commentators frame it as a threat to another royal. If Camilla receives praise, others interpret it as an attempt to overshadow Catherine. If one woman appears more prominently in photographs, people begin asking whether there is a hidden rivalry. Yet the monarchy does not function quite that simply. There are official duties, different patronages, different constitutional roles, and different ceremonial responsibilities. A woman standing beside her husband at an event is not necessarily competing with another woman standing somewhere else. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct one. And that brings us back to the phrase, cross the line. What line? Was there an identified action? Was there an official complaint? Was there a palace statement? Was there an interruption witnessed by accredited journalists? Was there evidence that Charles ordered the event to stop? Based on the available reporting, we do not have those things. The official royal family description of the Order of the Garter emphasizes the tradition itself, an annual procession and service at Windsor Castle celebrating Britain's oldest and senior order of chivalry. The reporting from the 2026 event likewise describes the royal family gathering for the ceremony, not a dramatic shutdown ordered by the king. So if the headline is not literally supported, should the entire story be dismissed? Not necessarily. The underlying subject, the changing dynamics of the royal family, is still fascinating. Charles is king. Camilla is queen. William is heir to the throne. Catherine is the future queen. Their public roles are interconnected, and the transition from one generation to another is already underway. That transition will inevitably create moments that attract intense attention. But the most responsible way to tell those stories is to distinguish what the cameras actually captured from what commentators believe may have happened away from them. Because there is a huge difference between saying, viewers noticed an interesting moment, and saying, King Charles stopped everything because Camilla attacked Catherine. One invites discussion, the other presents speculation as fact. And for a YouTube channel trying to build a loyal audience, that distinction matters enormously. Viewers may click on a shocking headline once, but they return to channels they trust. They want drama, yes, but they also want to know that the person telling the story understands the difference between evidence and rumor. That is where this royal story becomes bigger than one ceremony. It becomes a lesson in how modern royal news works. The palace operates in an environment where almost every image can be dissected within minutes. A single frame can become a thumbnail. A short video can become a theory can become a headline, and a headline can become a narrative that millions believe happened even when the original evidence never supported it. Meanwhile, the real event can disappear beneath the noise. On Garter Day 2026, the real event was steeped in centuries of tradition. King Charles and Queen Camilla attended. Prince William participated. Catherine and Sophie watched the procession. The royal family gathered at St. George's Chapel. That is the verified foundation. Everything beyond it should be treated carefully. And perhaps the most emotional question is not whether Charles ended the ceremony, but why so many people were ready to believe that he had. Is it because the public has become fascinated with the possibility of hidden tensions inside the monarchy? Is it because Catherine and Camilla represent two different chapters of the royal story? Or is it simply because dramatic conflict is easier to consume than quiet continuity? The answer may be a combination of all three. Royal stories have always depended on symbolism, and modern audiences have added something new: instant interpretation. The monarchy provides the images, while social media provides the theories. Sometimes those theories are insightful, sometimes they are completely wrong, and sometimes, as appears to be the case here, a real event becomes surrounded by claims that go far beyond what can actually be established. That does not make the royal family boring, quite the opposite. It makes their public world even more fascinating, because the real challenge is learning to read the difference between what is visible and what remains unknown. So when you see a headline claiming that King Charles shut down the Garter ceremony because Queen Camilla crossed a line with Catherine, remember the question that should always come first: where is the evidence? The available reporting does not show the ceremony being terminated in such a dramatic fashion. Instead, it shows the King, Queen, Prince and Princess of Wales participating in one of the monarchy's most historic annual traditions. And that may actually be the more important story. Because behind all the speculation, behind all the dramatic thumbnails, behind every theory about secret palace rivalries, the royal family continues to face the same enormous challenge: maintaining public confidence while navigating a generational transition under an extraordinary level of scrutiny. Charles must lead. William must prepare for the future. Catherine must continue rebuilding her public role. Camilla must carry out her responsibilities as queen. And every one of them knows that millions of eyes are watching. The next royal appearance will therefore be examined just as closely. The next photograph will generate new theories. The next gesture will be analyzed. And the next headline may once again claim that something explosive happened behind palace walls. But this time, perhaps the most important thing viewers can do is pause before believing it. Because sometimes the biggest royal shock isn't what happened inside the palace. It's how quickly the world can convince itself that something happened at all.